Hi, my name is Father Sammie and I like to cook. And I'm very glad that you're here today so I can share some of my recipes with you. If you like what you see here, you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe to this video so we can continue to bring you more. So today I'm kind of excited. We're going to do two dishes. We're going to do lemon squares done the right way. And when I say right way, one of the problems with lemon squares for me is they just don't have enough of that citrus punch to them. So these are definitely going to have a punch to them. And I'll be sharing, there's a chemical reason, I'll be sharing that with you a little bit later. And then we're also going to do Puerto Rican rice and chicken. This is something that I had when I was a seminarian and I've loved it. I never was brave enough to do it until recently. So we're going to share that with you. So most everything's going to be done right here in the food processor. So I have 2.5 cups of flour, I have a half teaspoon of salt, and I have 2/3 cup of powdered sugar. And I'm just going to give that a very quick little pulse to stir that stuff up. And into that I have 12 tablespoons of melted butter. So I'm going to run the processor and slowly add in the butter. So I'm going to take and scrape the sides. This is basically a shortbread cookie. This is pretty much the same thing you do if you were going to make shortbread cookies. But you can see that there's always flour that gathers on the side. I don't know if it's just this processor or all processors. Okay. Now I'm going to dump this into a bowl. Again, you're going to find that there's going to be stuff stuck on the bottom. Just take it out. Basically, you have, just mix that in a little bit thoroughly. As you can see, as I press it, how it holds together. So that's going to help us. So what we've done here is we've lined this with parchment paper. And we have to be careful to make sure that the corners are tight. This is a kind of a sticky substance, and I've also lightly sprayed it. And into this pan that's lined with parchment paper, I'm going to add our cookie crumb mixture. I'm going to reserve some of this because, I mean, you could use this all in the recipe, but I'm going to use this to make a crumble to go with dessert today, which I'll show you in a moment. So you just take this and spread it all over. And then you're just going to come. You get the camera here and show, if you're just pressing it down, try to even it out. So you can see I've done that. Now what I'm going to do, I've done it both ways, but I'm going to dock this. You just never know. I mean, it's light enough that it probably won't crack, but as it bakes, we just don't want to take a chance on that. And into a 340 degree oven, this is going to bake for about 12 to 15 minutes. So we've got the crust in the oven right now, and it's time to make the curd. And one of the secrets that I use regularly whenever I use citrus is this technique. So I have 3 cups of sugar here. And to the 3 cups of sugar, I have the zest of 4 lemons. So I'm going to add the zest into the sugar. I'm going to kind of mix it because it kind of can clump up. And what's going to happen is I'm going to food process this, and all the oils from the lemon zest is going to go into that sugar. And the sugar is going to turn pale. I've done this before on the show, so you've seen this process before, but I use this anytime I make anything with lemon. So you can see that this is turned into a pale yellow. I'm going to process a little bit more. There's always going to be some zest that's going to cling to the bottom. So again, just like anything else, you're going to have to scrape the bottom. So I'm going to take this zested sugar, which is loaded with the citrus oil, and I'm going to put it into a large bowl. We're going to take half a cup of flour, And here's the secret ingredient. This is cream of tartar. It's citric acid. And so what happens is citric acid is going to trick your brain. So whenever you want to enhance a citrus flavor, you're going to put some of this into it, and it's going to enhance, and your brain's going to think you're eating more lemon than you're actually eating. So I'm going to put this cream of tartar in here. I'm going to give that a quick whisk. And I'm going to return all this back to the food processor. And now watch the magic take place. I'm going to have a cup of lemon juice. As I run the food processor, I'm going to add the lemon juice. And to this now liquid mixture, I'm going to add 4 egg yolks and 4 whole eggs. So it is now fully incorporated, and you have the beginnings of a lemon curd. Now, what you have to do is we're going to take this to the stovetop, and we're going to cook it on medium-high heat until the temperature reaches 160 degrees. By that point, it'll start thickening up. Now, why are we doing this? Well, one of the problems with a lot of lemon squares is people, not only they don't have enough punch to them, but they're awful liquidy. They can be kind of more like jello than they can be like a really strong curd. So that's because on the edges of the pan, the oven's going to bake it. In the center, it's always going to stay a little jiggly. So we're going to kind of even that out by putting it on the stove and cooking it for a while, reaching a certain temperature, putting it back in the oven, and then it's only going to take like 20 minutes and it'll be done. This is going to take about 6 to 8 minutes. And this is not something you can like walk away from. There's something you got to stay on top of this and keep whisking. So I want to show you when I stir this, come look at this, and you'll see there's bits and pieces. This is like, first I thought, where is this coming from? But this is like the brown part of when you zest the lemon. There's always something that's a little discolored. And so that's all right, because what we're going to do once this reaches 160 degrees, so we're going to put it through a fine sieve and strain it. So we'll catch all that lemon zest and maybe any pieces of egg that didn't completely get incorporated. You can see the edges of this are getting thicker, and this is about 160. And once it reaches 160, it's going to start congealing on the sides, and we don't want that to happen. Then we're going to have a lumpy curd. So I'm going to take it right to the edge when I see that. So you can put this into a warm shell, so don't worry that this is still hot. It'll be fine. It's going to go right back in the oven. So if you remember, we reserved some of the crust mixture, and I've added about a 1/4 cup of chopped pecans and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So I'm just going to mix this up with my hands. And I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of butter. And this is making a crumble. Now, we don't use a lot of crumble here in the United States. This is a very popular thing in Europe, especially in Britain. Just going to throw out. Now, this also makes a wonderful cookie. I mean, if you want to make like a pecan cookie, this is it. So you're just going to spread this out. And you got to watch this. Now, this has more sugar in it, so it's going to brown faster. We're going to stick it back in the oven for maybe 10 minutes total. All right? So our lemon squares are done. This was one I made yesterday. The one we made today is still cooling. You have to let it cool for like 2.5 hours, and that's really hard. So this one's been done, sat overnight. Into this little sifter, I have about 1/2 cup of powdered sugar and about 1/4 cup of powdered white chocolate. And I'm just going to go over the top and cover it evenly. Now, as it sits, it might soak in. Okay, that's all there is to it. And then you're going to cut it and serve it. Okay, we're going to start our Puerto Rican chicken and rice. One of the things you have to understand, just like an Italian, every Italian family has their own sauce. Every Puerto Rican or Hispanic family that does this, a rice dish with chicken, has their own recipe. This is just what I'm offering you, okay? So first thing we have to do is trim the chicken. You're going to get, like, we buy this in bulk, you know, in big bags, and they never comes trimmed. So it's kind of gross. But just go through, and we don't need all that skin. So just going to chop that off. First thing I'm going to do is season this with salt and pepper. And you notice I'm doing this up high instead of close, because the higher you go, the better spread you get, even spread you get on the chicken or whatever you're seasoning. I'm going to crank some pepper on this. And then I'm going to add this. This is called sazon. And it is a mixture of spices. You can easily find this in import stores, a Mexican store. And it's often used in Hispanic cooking. So we're going to take and we're going to pretty heavily coat this chicken. This has saffron in it, so it's going to help color the rice when we put it together. Okay, great. We're going to set this aside and just let it marinate for a little while, and then we're going to make our sofrito. Sofrito is something that's used in Hispanic cooking across the board, and it's, again, the ingredients can vary. What I have here is 2 cups of cilantro. I have a cup of cubanelle peppers. Now, a lot of people just use green peppers or sweet peppers, but I think this has just a little bit more flavor to it, so I like to use those. I have a cup of regular white onions, 10 cloves of garlic. Okay, I got 2 tablespoons of cumin, and I got 1 tablespoon of habanero powder. Okay, and we've got avocado oil. So into the food processor, we're going to put our cilantro, and you can also add the stems in this. They break down there just fine. The onion, the garlic, of course. 2 tablespoons of cumin, and a little punch to this, the habanero powder. Now, none of this is so spicy that I can't eat it, and I'm not a big spice person, but you definitely feel the heat. So we're going to just process all this together. We kind of want to bring this to like a paste. Now, you can buy, if you want to skip this step in the recipe, you can buy sofrito in the grocery store. But I don't think it's that difficult, and I think fresh stuff always tastes better than canned stuff. So into the food processor, I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of avocado oil. And again, I'm going to scrape down the sides. I'm going to give this a couple more pulses, and then I'll be putting this into a bowl. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to reserve a half a cup of this for the last moment in the recipe. We add it just at the last before we're ready to serve. And also I'm going to reserve a little bit of this for presentation purposes. So we've already seasoned our chicken thighs, and now we're going to go and make the main dish. So a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of different recipes throughout the world. And one of the things I like about this dish, it makes me think of all the wonderful cultures throughout the world and how food unites us. And rice and chicken, almost every nationality has some kind of rice and chicken dish. And this is something, when you eat this, you think you're kind of like connected with so many people. And you know, that's what the Lord Jesus does. He pulls us together and He connects us. And so whenever I make this, I'm thinking that we're pulling people together and we're doing the work of God. In some recipes, they start with ham, but the fact of the matter is, what is better than bacon? So we're starting with bacon, okay? We're going to fry the bacon, and once the bacon is fried, we're going to remove it from the skillet. We're going to put in the chicken thighs, skin down, cook them on both sides, take them out, and then we're going to add 3 cups of long grain rice, which has already been washed and drained. We're going to add eventually 4 cups of chicken stock. We have a 10-ounce can of petite diced tomatoes, And this has a little chili in it just to add the factor. We're going to take 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and add it to this recipe. We have 4 tablespoons of capers. We have about 6 packs of that Sazon seasoning we talked about earlier. We have 1 cup of onions. And we have 1 full jar of green olives with the pimentos in them. So, and then eventually we're going to add the sofrito back into the dish. Okay, so let's get started by frying the bacon. You don't want the bacon too crispy, but you want it like this. It's kind of brown on the edges. Try to get as much of this out of here as possible, but it's all going to go in the same pot, so if you miss a little piece here and there, no big deal. Now into this grease, which is basically the bacon grease, we're going to take the chicken that we seasoned earlier, and we're going to put it in face down. Put it on medium heat, skin down I should say. Whenever you're putting something in a pot, make sure you put it away from you when you put it down, otherwise you're going to splatter yourself. Okay, I'm going to time this now for 8 minutes. Resist the desire to mess with it. Let it alone for 8 minutes. It's been 8 minutes, and so these should be crispy on the bottom, release real easy. Isn't that beautiful? See, we resisted the temptation to flip them, to mess with them, and look how beautiful they are. What we have to do now is take the excess oil off. So I'm going to pour the oil from here into this container. Still little bits of bacon there, that's fine. And then I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of this oil I just poured in there and put it back into the pan. It's a little short of 2. Okay. And into that, I'm going to put my onions. So again, this is 1 cup of onions. I'm going to stir those around and get them so they kind of get translucent. As the onions sweat, as they release their water, and you see what it's doing is taking this fond off the side of the pan. This is where all the flavor is this like burnt stuff on the pan. So the more liquid that comes off these onions, the more of that it's going to take and put back into the dish. Okay, I think that's good enough. Now I'm going to add my rice. And I just want to kind of fry the rice a little bit. You kind of want to let that onion get mixed in there, the juices of the onion, that oil, and hopefully that rice is going to blossom a bit. Now, I've had this dish where it's all done on stovetop, so it's not in the oven at all. And what happens is the bottom of the rice dish gets burnt. And now that may sound bad, but if you can get some of that, that's even better. And to stir it into that and have this crunchiness, the texture of the soft rice and crunchy rice, it's really, really good. To this, and I think I'm going to let this go for a little bit more, maybe turn the heat up just a bit. I need that rice just on the edge to get kind of clear. But you can see the rice is kind of getting shiny. That's what I want. Into that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Now watch this happen. I'm going to sprinkle this as a Sazon, and it's got saffron in it. And watch what it does to the color of the rice. That's, I believe, 4 packets. Was that 6 packets? 4 packets. See how it turns everything that orangish yellow color? Now things on this dish are going to go pretty quickly. I'm going to add 4 cups of chicken stock. Well, before I do that, let's add the 10 ounces of diced tomatoes. Each time you add something, you want to stir it to incorporate the ingredient. And that's already looking really good to me. Now I'm going to add the 4 cups of the stock. Oops, oh, that was a mess. Into that, I'm going to take the cup of, or the jar of green olives. I know that sounds strange, but it really tastes wonderful in this dish. And now to give that kind of salty, briny sort of flavor, we're going to add the 4 tablespoons of capers. And we're going to throw the bacon that we fried back in. Then we're going to incorporate all these ingredients together. And finally, remember that sofrito that we made? I'm now going to put all that sofrito back in here, except for the part that we reserved for the very last minute. Okay. Now I'm going to bring this up to a simmer. I'm going to turn the heat up. And I'm going to return the chicken to the pot. Kind of submerge it down. Okay, I'm going to bring that up to a pretty strong simmer. We'll put the lid on, put it in the oven at 350 for about 20-25 minutes.
Very good. Very smooth. This is very good.
Father, this is like being in a gourmet restaurant, I'm telling you.
The food has been incredible, the atmosphere, the company, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. It's the best lemon bar I have ever had.
My plate was all empty, and it was delicious.
You've done an excellent job.
Oh, thank you.
It is delicious. Everything was very good, and I liked the chicken. It was spiced just right, not too much.
So thanks so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this episode because you've been in the kitchen with Padre. God bless.